Welcome to UNCAGED, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we are speaking with Kenneth Arthur. Hey, Kenneth, how you doing?
How are you doing, Bant? Great to be on the show.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Kenneth is speaking to us today from Ireland, and we'll talk a little bit about what's happening in Ireland in a second. But he is the Chief Commercial Officer of VisionID, which is a supplier of mobile computing, identification, and barcoding solutions, really to a broad, full spectrum of business sectors. And so we'll talk about kind of what's the latest with VisionID and where they're going. But before we get there, Kenneth, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, Bant, I must be about nearly 25 years in sales now. Ended up in sales, very circuitous route. Probably did the traditional sales training with the likes of Xerox, then moved in, did a long time in telecoms. And I suppose my key kind of area I focus on is kind of the strategic sales, on the big ticket sales items. Sales has, I suppose, changed a lot over the last number of years with the rise in inside sales and that machine, which is very data driven, heavy on analytics. Um, but when it comes to the top deals, if you're trying to close the multi-million euro deals, that the strategy and the people side is more fundamental than ever before. And I suppose that's kind of the area from a VisionID perspective, trying to do the big ticket items, the big managed services. As we move into a system integrator world, that's more and more where I suppose my expertise comes in.
So tell me more about VisionID and what you guys are doing there.
So VisionID, we're just over 21 years old, based in Clonmel in the south of Ireland. Traditionally, we would have been in the barcode scanning and print industry. Would have been seen as a reseller, predominantly with Zebra. Um, but over the years, a reseller market is very cutthroat, so you need to add layers of services on top. So very much focused over the last number of years on managed services around those. So rather than just supplying devices, that we would maybe supply the SIM cards, provide the software to manage those devices, provide the managed help desk. So we have a multilingual help desk based in Clonmel to support our customers. And I suppose what we've seen over the last number of years, a lot of customers have been talking to us about digital transformation. It can be digital transformation means all things to everyone, but it can be as simple as a SAP rollout over a number of years in a large company. It can be removing paper in a clean room. And those companies who are on digital transformation always needed devices to remove the paper. What we have seen, particularly over the last, especially since COVID, digital transformation has accelerated. Everyone is talking about it. So it's not just about selling the devices or providing the managed services. We want to move into what I'll call the core. So helping customers with the software and the technology to avail of the new solutions that are out there, be it AR and VR, being able to enhance people to do digital workflows on the factory floor, to be able to do remote assist, because now you mightn't have access to people because they haven't been traveling because of COVID, and generally playing in the space where you're helping customers design that factory of the future. So we play a part in that. So very much niche operator, focusing on high-end manufacturing, life sciences. By life sciences, we mean pharma, med tech, bio.
That's great, and I think that what you were alluding to right up front, where you were talking about kind of the progression of your own career, the growth space or the commercialization space has certainly evolved dramatically and become much more sophisticated. And so I listened to you talk about even what you guys are doing at VisionID, and I kind of can sense that there's that strategic part of that element there, right? That's that kind of getting into the discussion to talk about broader solutions.
Mm.
So tell me more about that. Tell me how sales has and commercialization and growth has really evolved in terms of really offering kind of like that strategic solution.
Well, I suppose with a lot of our key customers, you're initially supplying one product. I'm actually reading Basonomics at the moment by I think is it Michael or Brian Dumain, and he talks about the Amazon flywheel. And I suppose that's, in one way what a lot of companies like ourselves do. You're supplying one service, you're in on the factory floor, and you spot a need for something else, and you start creating more, and you're creating more stickiness, and then you get a critical mass where you're now all of a sudden you're seen as a key supplier, and that gets you to the table to have those discussions around the managed services and addressing business pain points. So for us, it's very much kind of starting off small, and as I said, adding more and more services. And when you become a critical player, from a spend with companies, you're automatically getting more visibility. So, we would be dealing with the line engineers, the IT directors, and you're working up to VP level. So, and as you're going up because of your critical mass, those people tend to have a wider span of control. So where we were supplying a company in Ireland, because we were dealing with the line engineer, while the director might have responsibility for manufacturing across multiple sites in Ireland, and the VP often might have responsibility across multiple sites in Europe. So currently VisionID, even, we supply probably over 40% of our products and services are landing abroad, and predominantly to American multinationals who may have set up operation in Ireland originally. And because the initial decision makers were in Ireland, as shared services may have grown, we're getting our span of control is extending. So we're growing with our customers. And as I said, because of the, that flywheel, because we're more and more ingrained, you have to earn a seat at the table with the top people to have
Yeah,
those discussions.
completely. I can see how that extends out and has clearly been probably learning from kind of some of the leading management consultancies, as they've probably been the leaders in figuring that out. But it's quite interesting. You also talk about the growth story of the business, and over the last 20 years, and you're extending outside of Ireland. Tell me some of the dynamics of a business in Ireland and how it relates to the rest of the world.
Well, I suppose, and this is where when we earn the seat at the table, there are global organizations with big brand name that can always get in. But, in Ireland, we've always had to scrap for business, right? So you develop that competitiveness, but
We are a scrappy people.
absolutely. So, when you think of Ireland, and most people, you know, be it the former president who talked about trying, Ireland and the tax take and bringing jobs home and that. The reality is, yes, a lot of companies came to Ireland because of tax, but again, getting onto that flywheel, as more companies come, there tends to be local innovation, the infrastructure is built up, and a lot of resources around. So we have 9 of the top 10 US technology companies based in Ireland. We have 9 of the top 10 global pharma, 14 of the top 15 global medtech. So what we have done, and I suppose where we are based, probably not by design, our founder, we're in his hometown, right? Because where we were based, there was a pharma cluster with Eli Lilly and Pfizer and these just below us, and to the left of us was a medtech cluster with the likes of Medtronic and the Boston Scientifics. So where most Zebra partners would have been in the retail space, that barcode scanning, we really concentrated on that high-end manufacturing. So, when you said about how strategic, it probably happened by default, but actually it positioned us in a great place from a pandemic perspective, because we were not exposed to the likes of retail. We weren't exposed to hospitality. So we actually grew during the pandemic because a lot of those, particularly high-end manufacturing from a food and beverage perspective, demand for product increase, demand for products, anything in relation to med tech, because if it wasn't for antigen testing, or it may be, more from a vaccines and that, those companies have been spending more. So we've grown again as our customers grown. Was it the most strategic decision? Yeah, I suppose you need to be in the right place at the right time. Now, we further capitalized on that by, I think back March 12th, when the world stopped, we saw ourselves business drop off a cliff. Now, when I say business, I mean engagement, in terms of the invoices and quotes, that sort of business dropped off by 40% overnight. Literally just
Wow.
dropped off.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that journey. I mean, it's been been quite a roller coaster that we've
Yeah.
all been on, and I'm hoping that everyone obviously is okay with you and your loved ones. But tell me more on the business side on how things evolved from February onwards.
So we actually last year we had probably our best Q1. Um, and then we saw what was happening internationally. I don't know, did we realize the full extent of it? I was myself and all my extended family, we were going to Disneyland. I think it was the 20th of March in Florida. So there was a lot of panic in the personal life back then. But anyway, on March the 12th, which was the kind of government announcement here that the country was shutting down, literally the phone stopped, emails stopped, because business were trying to adapt and find how they could work from home. Now we would have a lot of people kind of on the road, so we wanted to make sure. So it was easy for us to get, increase our bandwidth, to be able to increase some of our laptops and IT equipment to cope. Our big challenge was making sure the phone systems or help desk operators could work from home, especially for the multilingual. So we were quickly up to speed. Um, but after a couple of weeks, what we noticed was the volume was down, but the value from those was actually increasing. So when I saw a drop of 40% in volume of activity, the actual volume initially drop in business was probably closer to, say, maybe only about 20%, because maybe there had been projects that were there from the start of the year. And as the year went on, we started innovating around the product called SureTrace ID for contact tracing and social distancing in the workplace. We thought about that probably in April. We, based on ultra wideband technology, which is something we do, derivative of RFID, engaged with customers in May, ran pilots in June, and were launched in July. And that was a great success for us. And what that enabled us was to have conversations with customers about how we could support them. So, the business stops. We still have jobs to keep, you have livelihoods, but you can't be ringing up customers talking about barcode scanners and managed services, where really you're trying to ring them up to support them and see how can you help them keep afloat. Um,
So tell me a
and
little bit. So is what's the product name is SureTrace?
Sure Trace ID.
Okay, SureTrace ID. And tell me more on how. I mean, the amazing thing when I listen to that story is really kind of, I think, something I've seen as the telltale characteristic of the companies that have succeeded and grown and the companies that have really struggled, which is when presented with the crisis, there were companies that kind of like retreated, locked themselves away, and others that innovated aggressively, almost like what I call kind of wartime innovation, right? Where
Mm.
you had to come up with a new model. It sounds like that's really what happened in your case. I mean, the idea that you were able to turn around a product and launch it in just a matter of months is excellent. Tell me more about that story.
Yeah, so you hear this word about pivoting, and I suppose it's very hard for companies. It's easy to say you pivot, but we actually kind of felt, no, let's stick within the core. So we are experts in RFID. We've been playing around with that technology for 10 years. So ultra wideband beaconing sensors, we kind of felt, here, there's something here in sensing. So we looked for various hardware. We found some. We talked to various manufacturers. I don't have one of the lanyards here now beside me, but the idea here is when you bring the two lanyards within 2 meters, which was the recommended social distancing, they would automatically vibrate or alert. So the users would automatically go, all right, I've broken the 2 meters. But what we also did was that signal, that interaction was captured on the lanyard. And when you pass through a gateway, it would automatically upload the information. When people say ultra wideband and technology, I say, look, simplest example is if you have a toll tag on your car, when you're passing at the toll bridge, there's a reader up and it picks it up. And that was similar to what the ultra wideband was doing. So in the interaction, if you broke the 2 meters, the interaction would be captured. Then it was uploaded to we had a hosted solution. So we developed the software. And then that would provide a digital contact tracing log. So every employee all of a sudden felt safe because they knew what 2 meters was, the boundary, but then all those interactions were captured. So companies like Biomarin in Ireland, they were able to keep their businesses operational. They didn't shut down. They can't shut down. They didn't stop their products because they knew they were able to keep workers safe. So workers were safe. Companies kept in production. And actually, our largest deployment of Sure Trace ID is in San Francisco, where I think we've nearly 2,000 uh, people are using Sure Trace ID for that reason, to protect in the workplace, keep operations going. And yeah, we went aggressively after it. Now, it had a strong impact on the bottom line, but probably more important than that, it kept us relevant with our customer base. It was a key differentiator. We were able to generate publicity. So we never needed to talk about our core services, but because we were relevant in the news and things like that, we were still picking up the orders and getting the business. So there was a pull through effect. But we also then, kind of head mounted displays. We very quickly saw some of the companies in Ireland, the medtech, they couldn't get engineers in from places like Italy. They couldn't get engineers in from Germany. So what did they do when they had a problem with the machine? Then they used head-mounted technology so that you could do remote assist, remote eyes. And again, there are products, solutions like RealWare. We've seen things like Microsoft HoloLens that enabled remote assist, and now that's leading to augmented reality, virtual reality. People now are used to using this technology. Can it enable digital workflows and so forth? So again, getting to that kind of flywheel, you start off with something from an innovation perspective, and you keep talking to customers and adding more onto it, and building layers around it. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
no, I love that. I love the evolution, the rapid evolution that you guys went through. How did it impact kind of like the day to day of how you guys were working? So I think you mentioned up front to me that you were heavy users of Microsoft Teams, but was everyone working remote? How did that function?
We had so we have an office staff. Well, I'll say we have about 40 staff. Um, I think we cut it down to three in the office. We kept the warehouse open because we would have been deemed an essential business because we supplied a health service in Ireland. So we were kept open from the doors, but everyone was at home. The rest of the people were at home using Teams, working in kids' bedrooms or closets or wherever you wanted to go. So we had everyone was working from home, and I suppose the great thing was initially it was all new and stressful for people, but people's work ethic didn't change. People's work ethic doesn't change. So when they were working hard in the office, they were working equally hard at home. So I think that more trust became apparent. I was speaking to a lot of companies, between employers and employees. That was one of the good things. So people are now happy to work from home. Although what we've seen now is that after 12 months, people are sick of working from home. They're craving the routine of the office. They're craving the collegiality of it. Um, it's okay if you have an office, a dedicated office space, or there's no kids at home, or there's no cat or dog barking around. But most people, a lot of people we see wanting to go back into the office to get into a routine. Now, they might go back five
Yeah,
days a
they
week.
want to connect with people. I mean,
Yeah,
we're human beings,
yeah.
and we like to be with each other. So, and I mean, I think probably, in certain markets, that's probably more true than others. We have a big office in Spain, and we saw that immediately when the team was allowed to go back to the office, they all went right back to the office, and it was in the US I think it's been the opposite. The US has
Mhm.
been like, hey, this remote stuff works great, why do we all have to be at the office? I think so it's a real mix in what we're seeing around the world. We'll see how that kind of evolves, for sure. But tell me a little bit on how you see the space now that we're pushing into this post-pandemic era. Hopefully, I should knock on wood somewhere. How do you see that impacting what you guys are thinking about on the commercial side at Vision ID? I mean, are there new products, new services that you guys are thinking about, or is it really kind of going back to the core?
Um, I, I would, when you mention core, so we'll never forget our core, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what's there. But I suppose expanding the core. So when we think of devices and things like that, what I would always say is they're on the digital edge, right? So if ultimately you need a software service running on it. What we are now seeing is that digital transformation is accelerating demand for new technology, particularly in that space. We talk about the life sciences and high value manufacturing. So we have seen more and more companies kind of accelerate those plans because they want to make sure from a future perspective that there is no disruption. Maybe it means less people on the manufacturing floor. So we're seeing, probably COVID has accelerated digital transformation plans probably by 5 years. So for us, using the technology, the new technologies that are there, but working with the customers around the software behind those, supplying software with those services, making sure you have your clear area of expertise and that you can articulate that to customers. So it's very important. We talk about digital transformation. As I said, what that means to one company, what it means to us can be very different. So we want to be able to quickly go, this is our view of the future factory. And you'll hear terms like digital transformation, industry 4.0, factory of the future. Well, we have a kind of a map where we show this is our view of what the factory floor looks like, or future factory floor. And this is the space we fit into. And these are the adjacencies around which we build services across it. So we're going to double down in that space, really go heavy on that. But also very important to know your skill set and to be able to articulate that to the customers. It's vital for people.
Yeah, I think that really captures it quite well. I remember that you flagged the term of kind of being at the center of that real time society. So even on like the delivery side, I can see how not only just on the factory floor, but also kind of as it gets out to society, how what you guys deliver will have an impact for sure.
Yeah.
Kenneth, it's been amazing to talk to you today about one of my favorite places in the world, which is Ireland, but also to talk about VisionID and everything that you guys are doing and that rapid digital transformation that we're seeing. I think you're absolutely right. What I think about is 2020 is the year of, it's like a watershed moment where all of, I think my classic line is, those one or two guys that are on every board in the world that basically say no to everything, basically were finally outvoted. And everyone embraced the change. So thank you so much for telling us about all of these elements at VisionID. If someone wanted to learn more about what you guys are up to, where should they find you?
VisionID.ie. Let's go straight to the website. We place a heavy emphasis on content and adding new content to the website, so that is always evolving. And can reach out to us via the chat feature on that, or email into info@visionid.ie. But that's the first port to call where where people can talk to us. And we're more than happy to talk to everyone.
Great. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on UNCAGED today. UNCAGED is a program that provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. We've been talking with Kenneth Arthur. Kenneth is the Chief Commercial Officer at VisionID, and he's been telling me about all of the stuff that they're doing in the mobile computing, identification, and barcoding space, really helping design and put together the strategy for the factory of today, I would say. Let's not talk about the future, but today. And they're making it happen. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Kenneth.
Thanks, Pants. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.